Love is not just an emotion, but a long journey full of challenges, learning, and growth. But do we really understand love, or are we just vague with ups and downs? It doesn't always begin with a breakup. Sometimes, the slow death of a relationship starts with silence. A shift in tone. A forgotten detail. A conversation that feels more like a chore than connection. You're still together, but you feel alone. Deep down, you know something has changed. He doesn't look at you the same way. He doesn't make you feel chosen anymore. And though he hasn't said the words out loud, his actions are speaking clearly. He no longer values you. If this feels familiar, it's time to see the signs you've been trying to ignore. Welcome to the channel, Sophia's Knowledge, and my name is Sophia. This is where we explore real stories, profound lessons, and valuable experiences about love. Today, in this video, Sophia will share with you 6 actions men do when they don't appreciate you anymore. If you have ever wondered about questions about love, don't skip this video. For the best experience, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and let yourself completely listen to what I am about to share. Relax, and let everything flow away. Let's find out with Sophia the secrets to help you live more fully in each relationship. Let's get started together. Number 1. He starts to dismiss your feelings. There is something profoundly painful about feeling invisible to the person you love. At the start of a relationship, he might have listened closely when you spoke, noticed every shift in your tone, and cared deeply about your well-being. Your emotions mattered. Your tears had weight. Your joy was his joy. But over time, something changes. Subtly, but unmistakably, he starts to treat your feelings like background noise. Something to be tuned out rather than tuned into. When a man stops cherishing you, one of the first signs is that he begins to minimize, belittle, or outright ignore how you feel. It doesn't happen overnight. It begins with small remarks like "you're overreacting," "you're too sensitive," or "it's not that serious." At first, you might brush it off, thinking maybe you are being emotional. But over time, this pattern becomes hard to ignore. And it hurts in ways that words can barely express. The dismissal of your emotions isn't just about disagreement, it's about invalidation. It's him telling you, whether directly or indirectly, that your inner world no longer matters. That your experiences, your heart, and your emotional truth are inconvenient, exaggerated, or irrational. And the more this continues, the more you start to question yourself. You begin to wonder, am I really too sensitive, or maybe I shouldn't have brought this up? This is emotional neglect dressed in casual conversation. What makes this especially damaging is that it can make you feel alone even when you're physically together. You sit across from him at dinner and talk about your bad day, but he looks at his phone. You cry, and he rolls his eyes. You try to explain something that upset you, and he immediately gets defensive, turning it around so that he's the one who feels attacked. It becomes exhausting. Eventually, you may stop sharing altogether. Not because your feelings are gone, but because it's too painful to watch them be disregarded. When a man still values you, even if he disagrees with your emotions, he seeks to understand them. He says, "Help me understand why you feel this way." He listens. He responds with empathy. He shows that your perspective matters. He doesn't have to always agree, but he does acknowledge that your feelings are valid, because you are valid. But when that value fades, so does the effort. He begins to treat your emotional needs as a burden. Every conflict becomes a chore. Every expression of vulnerability is met with annoyance, sarcasm, or silence. You become the only one trying to bridge the emotional distance while he pulls further away. And the worst part? He may not even notice, or care, that you're slowly shutting down inside. This emotional disconnection often stems from a deeper truth: he no longer sees the relationship as something worth nurturing. And while it may sound harsh, acknowledging this is crucial. Because no matter how deeply you love someone, no matter how much history you share, a relationship without emotional safety is a relationship built on shaky ground. It's important to know that your feelings are not too much. They are not an inconvenience. They are not irrational simply because someone else refuses to honor them. You deserve a partner who sees your emotional world as something worth protecting, not something to be silenced. You might be asking, can this change? The answer is complex. Yes, some emotional disconnects can be healed if both people are willing to do the work. But it takes two emotionally mature individuals committed to understanding and growth. If he constantly dismisses your feelings and refuses to engage with them no matter how gently you try, then what you're experiencing is not love, it's neglect disguised as convenience. Healing starts when you stop making excuses for emotional disrespect. It begins when you look in the mirror and remind yourself that love should not hurt your sense of self. It should not make you feel smaller. It should not make you doubt your worth just because you have feelings that deserve to be heard. Ask yourself this: when you express your hurt, does he comfort you or defend himself? When you cry, does he come closer or walk away? When you speak, does he listen or wait for you to finish so he can talk? These answers reveal more than words ever could. A man who truly values you will protect your emotional world, not trample on it. He will lean in, not shut down. He will try, not avoid. And if he doesn't, then perhaps it's time to choose someone who does. Or better yet, choose yourself first. Because at the end of the day, you deserve a relationship where your feelings aren't seen as flaws, but as part of the beautiful, complex, and powerful person you are. If you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends or family to spread the value. And if you have any questions or ideas, leave them in the comments. I'm always listening and ready to answer. Let's continue together. Number 2. He no longer pays attention to the little things about you. Love is rarely built on grand gestures. It grows in the quiet corners, in the unnoticed details, in the soft intimacy of daily life. It's in the way he remembers your coffee order, how he keeps your favorite snack stocked in the cupboard, or how he texts you when he knows you have a big meeting. It's in the tiny moments where his attention says, "I see you." But something shifts when a man no longer values the relationship. And it doesn't begin with a big argument or a major betrayal. Often, it starts with the smallest things, things so subtle you barely notice at first. Until, one day, you realize that all the little ways he used to show he cared are gone. He stops asking how your day was. He doesn't notice when you change your hair or wear that perfume he once said drove him crazy. He forgets the name of your best friend or the fact that your mom's birthday is coming up. He used to check in just to hear your voice. Now, hours, sometimes days, go by in silence. And the worst part? You start to feel like a stranger in a relationship that used to feel like home. When a man truly values you, he becomes a student of your soul. He notices the things that make you smile, the things that weigh on your heart, and the things you never even say aloud. He remembers not because he's perfect, but because he cares. Attention is a form of affection. It's how he says, "You matter to me," without needing words. So when that attention fades, it leaves a silence far louder than any argument ever could. You may start to wonder if you're asking for too much. You might make excuses: he's busy, he's stressed, he's distracted. And yes, life gets chaotic. But someone who cherishes you will still find a way to make you feel seen. They don't forget everything that once made you feel special just because things get a little hectic. What's truly painful is the way this neglect makes you start questioning your worth. You begin to shrink. You stop doing your hair the way he liked because he no longer notices. You stop sharing small victories or fears because he no longer listens. You become a quieter version of yourself, not because you want to, but because you've been taught that your presence no longer draws his attention. And slowly, you begin to mourn the little things. You miss the way he used to send you memes because they reminded him of you. You miss how he'd remember that weird snack you love and surprise you with it after work. You miss being the person he noticed in a room full of people, even when that room was just your shared apartment. Now, everything feels routine. Mechanical. Like you're just going through the motions. He shows up physically but not emotionally. He does what's necessary but no longer goes out of his way to make you feel valued. You start to feel like a duty, not a desire. And here's the truth. When someone stops paying attention to the little things, it's not because they forgot how, it's because they stopped making the effort. When love is present, effort feels natural. He listens because he wants to. He remembers because he cares. He notices because he's invested. And when that effort fades, it often signals something deeper, a shift in priority. A waning of emotional connection. A slow, quiet departure from the relationship, even if he hasn't physically walked away. It's important to understand that this isn't about needing constant attention or validation. It's about needing presence. Emotional presence. A relationship cannot survive on autopilot. It needs attention to thrive, nurturing, noticing, remembering. If you feel like you're always the one noticing, always the one remembering, always the one trying, then you're not in a mutual relationship. You're holding on to something that no longer holds you back. And that realization can be heartbreaking. But it can also be freeing. Because once you recognize that his neglect is not your fault, you can begin to take your power back. You can stop shrinking to fit into someone's blind spot. You can stop pouring energy into someone who can't even remember what makes you feel loved. The right person will pay attention. Not just in the beginning, but consistently. They will continue to study you, to admire you, to invest in the tiny moments that matter. Because to someone who truly cares, no detail about you is ever too small to notice. So if he no longer remembers, no longer asks, no longer sees, maybe it's time to ask yourself a harder question. Why are you still trying to be seen by someone who chooses to look away? If you are still watching the video, do not hesitate to comment continue. Leave your thoughts and questions below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions. And do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel so that Sophia has more motivation to create more good and meaningful videos. Let's continue together. Number 3. Communication becomes dry and superficial. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't bring peace, it brings distance. It fills the space between two people who once couldn't stop talking, and now can't seem to connect at all. If you've ever been in love, you know how beautiful communication can be. It's not just about words, it's about feeling understood, seen, and held emotionally. But when a man no longer values or prioritizes the relationship, the first place that disconnect shows up is in the way he communicates. At the beginning, conversations flowed effortlessly. He asked about your day, followed up on things you mentioned days before, sent you thoughtful messages just to brighten your afternoon. Even silence felt safe because it was shared with intention. But slowly, that warmth begins to disappear. Messages turn into short, dry replies. Calls become infrequent, rushed, or filled with long, awkward pauses. He doesn't ask questions anymore, and when you talk, it feels like he's barely listening. The shift may be subtle at first. You might notice that he starts replying with one-word answers. Yeah. Cool. Okay. He no longer adds emotion or depth, and the conversations feel like tasks rather than connections. He speaks like someone who is present out of obligation, not desire. And the worst part is, you feel it. Deeply. When a man starts pulling away emotionally, communication is often the first casualty. It becomes functional, transactional, and devoid of intimacy. You may start to feel like you're talking to a coworker instead of a partner. You bring up something important, and he changes the subject. You express a concern, and he brushes it off. You try to dig deeper, and he shuts down. You might ask yourself, is he just tired? Distracted? Busy? And while life does get overwhelming, emotional connection doesn't require hours of time, it requires presence. It's not about how much he says, but how invested he is in what's being shared. When someone wants to be close to you, they make space for your words. They lean in. They respond thoughtfully. They meet you emotionally. But when a man starts to detach, communication becomes a chore for him, and a source of anxiety for you. You find yourself overthinking every message, wondering why he hasn't replied, questioning whether you're annoying or too needy. You start to shrink your words, edit yourself, and hesitate before expressing how you feel. That's not communication, that's survival. The tragic thing is, relationships don't often fall apart because of one massive betrayal. They fall apart because the small, daily bridges that connect two hearts crumble under neglect. And communication is one of the strongest of those bridges. Without it, you begin to drift. Healthy communication is more than just sharing words, it's about emotional engagement. It's about showing someone that you're there, that you care, and that you're listening. So when a man no longer gives you that, when his texts feel cold, his voice sounds distant, and his conversations lack substance, it's a clear sign he's emotionally checking out. You might try harder to revive what you once had. You send longer messages. You plan deeper conversations. You bring up issues gently, hoping to reconnect. But if he continues to respond with disinterest or deflection, the message is loud, he no longer wants to meet you where you are. And it hurts. It hurts to realize that someone you used to talk to about everything now makes you feel like you're speaking into a void. It hurts to remember how he once called you just to hear your voice, and now avoids calls altogether. It hurts to feel that your words, once cherished, are now merely tolerated. But here's the truth, communication is not supposed to feel like pulling teeth. It should not feel one-sided or forced. It should not make you question your right to express your feelings. You deserve a relationship where your voice is heard, not just out of courtesy, but out of genuine interest and love. When someone loves you, they want to know you, daily, deeply, and even when it's inconvenient. They want to hear about your worries, your dreams, your random thoughts at 2 a.m. They don't let the lines of communication grow cold, because they know it's the lifeline of emotional closeness. So if you find yourself constantly initiating, constantly reaching out, constantly trying to keep the spark alive while he offers nothing but silence or surface-level engagement, take that seriously. Communication is a mirror. When it's vibrant, it reflects mutual love. When it's dull, it reflects disconnection. You deserve more than just responses. You deserve conversations. You deserve a partner who wants to dive into your world, not skim the surface. And if he's no longer willing to do that, it may be time to ask the question you've been avoiding: why am I trying so hard to talk to someone who no longer wants to hear me? Because the truth is, when communication fades, it's not just the words that are lost. It's the closeness, the connection, the commitment. And the longer you accept dry, distant communication as normal, the more you teach yourself to expect less than you deserve. And you deserve so much more. Number 4. He becomes easily irritated and blames you for everything. Love is supposed to be a safe space, a shelter from the storms of life. In a healthy relationship, your partner is someone you can turn to, not someone you have to walk on eggshells around. But when a man no longer values or respects you, one of the clearest and most painful signs is this: his tone changes. His patience disappears. And everything suddenly becomes your fault. He starts snapping at you for the smallest things. You forget to mention something, he's annoyed. You disagree with him, he accuses you of being difficult. You try to communicate how you feel, he tells you you're being dramatic. His mood is unpredictable, his temper short, and his blame automatic. What used to be a peaceful exchange of thoughts becomes a battlefield. You're no longer speaking to someone who wants to resolve conflict, you're speaking to someone who wants to win. He raises his voice instead of lowering his pride. He critiques your every word instead of considering your perspective. And he turns every conversation into an opportunity to remind you of your flaws while never acknowledging his own. This behavior is not just frustrating, it's emotionally exhausting. When a man becomes easily irritated with you, it's not because you suddenly became intolerable. It's because he's lost the desire to be understanding. He no longer wants to do the emotional labor that relationships require. And instead of taking responsibility for his role in the dynamic, he shifts the weight onto your shoulders. Every issue becomes a reflection of your failures. Every argument ends with you apologizing, even when you're the one hurting. And over time, this pattern chips away at your self-esteem. You start blaming yourself too. You tell yourself you shouldn't have brought that up, or that you should have said it differently, or that you're too much to handle. You begin second-guessing every sentence, monitoring your tone, and editing your emotions so that he doesn't explode again. That's not love. That's emotional manipulation. Blame is a weapon used by people who don't want to face their own shortcomings. And when someone constantly blames you, what they're really doing is refusing to grow. They're projecting their own guilt, stress, and discontent onto you because it's easier than looking inward. But here's the hard truth. No matter how calm, loving, or perfect you try to be, someone who has made up their mind to be angry at you will be. You can't sue the person who has already decided that everything wrong in the relationship is your fault. You can only lose yourself trying. You may notice that his irritability isn't reserved just for arguments. It bleeds into the everyday. You ask a simple question, and he sighs in frustration. You make a suggestion, and he rolls his eyes. You try to talk about your needs, and he shuts you down. It feels like no matter what you say or do, it's never good enough. This creates a toxic cycle. You begin to equate love with conflict, affection with apology, and peace with silence. You keep quiet not because you're happy, but because it's safer than setting him off. You stay small in your own relationship. And slowly, you start to disappear. What's most dangerous about this kind of behavior is that it rewrites the story of who you are. It makes you believe you're the problem. But you are not responsible for someone else's lack of emotional control. You are not to blame for someone else's decision to belittle, attack, or guilt you into silence. Healthy relationships are built on accountability, on shared responsibility, on mutual respect. In a strong relationship, when something goes wrong, both partners look inward first, not outward. They say, "Let's figure this out together," not "This is your fault again." They understand that conflict is inevitable, but cruelty is a choice. If your partner is constantly blaming you, constantly losing patience with you, constantly treating you like a burden instead of a blessing, believe that for what it is. It's not just a phase. It's not just stress. It's a sign of someone who is no longer emotionally invested and no longer emotionally mature enough to support you. You deserve more than someone who punishes you for trying. You deserve a relationship where your efforts are seen, not criticized. Where your concerns are met with compassion, not contempt. Where your presence brings peace, not tension. And if the man you're with can no longer give you that, the bravest thing you can do is step away. Not because you failed, but because you finally remembered what you're worth. Because here's what real love looks like: patience, even on hard days. Accountability, even when it's uncomfortable. And communication that builds, not breaks. Anything less is not love, it's control disguised as care. So the next time he blames you for everything, take a deep breath and remind yourself, You are not the cause of his unhappiness, you're just no longer willing to carry the weight of it. Number 5. He starts prioritizing everything except you. In a loving relationship, presence is not just physical, it's emotional, mental, and intentional. You know when you matter to someone because you feel it. In their actions. In their time. In their attention. But one of the most heartbreaking signs that a man no longer values you is when he begins to prioritize everything else in his life, except you. At first, the changes are subtle. He cancels plans with you to hang out with his friends. He suddenly becomes too busy with work, even on weekends. He spends hours scrolling on his phone or gaming, yet can't find 5 minutes to ask how your day was. You tell yourself he's stressed. That this is just a phase. But deep inside, you feel it, something's different. Something's off. And it's not just the schedule, it's the effort. Because when a man truly loves you, he makes time, even when life is chaotic. He finds ways to include you in his world, not exclude you from it. He makes you feel like a priority, not an afterthought. But when he stops caring, everything else starts to come first. His job. His friends. His hobbies. His phone. His silence. And there you are, waiting, hoping, wondering if maybe you're asking for too much. But love doesn't make you feel like a burden. Neglect does. You start noticing that you're the only one initiating plans. You're the one checking in, scheduling dates, suggesting quality time. And even when he agrees to spend time with you, he's distracted, impatient, or emotionally distant. He's there, but not really there. And it's a kind of loneliness that cuts deeper than being alone. Because how do you explain to someone that their indifference is breaking your heart? This shift in priorities is not just about time, it's about choice. A man who once chose you, over and over, now seems to choose everything else. And while you keep making space for him in your world, he keeps shutting you out of his. That imbalance isn't just painful, it's unsustainable. You begin to shrink your needs, your expectations, your voice. You stop asking for time together because the rejection stings too much. You stop bringing up your concerns because he always makes you feel like you're too needy. So you settle for the little scraps of attention he offers, even though they're not enough to nourish your heart. But the truth is, people make time for what matters to them. No one is ever too busy for someone they truly care about. And if he's making time for everyone and everything else, yet never for you, he's showing you exactly where you stand in his life. No amount of excuses, promises, or apologies can change the message his actions are sending. Sometimes, it's not about work. Or stress. Or friends. It's about the fact that he no longer feels inspired to show up for you. And that's hard to accept. Because when you love someone, you look for reasons to stay, to justify, to hold on. You tell yourself he'll come around. That he just needs space. That you can wait. But while you're waiting, you're also withering. Love is not measured in grand declarations. It's measured in consistent choices. The call he makes during a busy day. The effort to include you in his schedule. The way he makes you feel seen, even when life is demanding. When those choices disappear, so does the foundation of the relationship. You might think, maybe if I'm more understanding, he'll come back. Or, maybe if I stop complaining, he'll give me more time. But you can't earn someone's effort by sacrificing your own dignity. You can't beg to be prioritized and still feel respected. And the deeper tragedy is that the more he pulls away, the harder you try. You invest more love, more energy, more patience. And he gives you less and less. That cycle is not sustainable. It's a slow emotional erosion, and one day you'll wake up and wonder how you became so invisible in a relationship you once believed in so deeply. But you are not invisible. You are simply not being seen by the person you love. And that is not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of his choices. You deserve someone who chooses you in the middle of chaos, who prioritizes your happiness, who understands that presence isn't about proximity. It's about attention, intention, and effort. And if the man you're with no longer offers that, then maybe it's not love that's missing, it's respect. The moment a man starts prioritizing everything but you is the moment you need to start prioritizing yourself. Your joy. Your peace. Your value. Because the right person won't make you feel like you have to fight for a spot in their life. They'll make room for you, gladly, intentionally, consistently. So if you're no longer being chosen, stop choosing someone who treats you like an option. Sometimes, the most powerful love you can give is the love you give yourself when someone else stops. Number 6. He no longer includes you in his future plans. One of the most profound signs that a man no longer cherishes you is when he stops imagining a future that includes you. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes, it starts with the absence of simple things. He stops saying we, and only says I. He stops talking about next month, next year, or even next weekend with you in mind. His plans begin to shift, but you're no longer part of the picture. At first, it might not seem like much. He makes a career decision without consulting you. He talks about traveling solo or relocating for work without asking how you'd feel. He discusses future holidays, family events, or life goals as if he's single, not in a committed relationship. And when you bring it up, he brushes it off with vague reassurances or subtle avoidance. You tell yourself not to overthink it. That maybe he's just unsure. That maybe he needs time. But deep down, you sense it. He's already walking ahead, and he's not reaching back for your hand. When a man truly loves you, he naturally starts building a vision of life that includes you in it. Not because you force him to, but because he wants you there. You're in the dreams, the goals, the decisions. You're not an afterthought. You're a part of his foundation. So when that inclusion disappears, it's not just about plans. It's about presence. About emotional distance. About a heart that's no longer looking in the same direction as yours. You might begin to notice how the conversations change. Where once he talked about someday with excitement and detail, where to live, what kind of life to build, even how many kids he dreamed of having, now, he avoids those talks entirely. Or worse, when you bring them up, he becomes uncomfortable, irritated, or even cold. His hesitation isn't always about fear of commitment. Sometimes, it's about a shift in heart. He may not say it out loud, but in his mind, he's already unsure. Already uncertain. Already pulling back from the emotional investment it takes to plan a life with someone. This kind of slow disconnection can be more painful than an outright breakup. Because it's filled with silence instead of honesty. Distance instead of closure. You keep hoping, waiting, adjusting, trying to squeeze yourself back into a vision that no longer has space for you. And as that space shrinks, so does your sense of security. You start wondering if you're just temporary now. If he's keeping you around until something better comes along. If you're the for now, not the forever. These doubts don't come from insecurity. They come from the reality that your partner is no longer making you feel like part of his world. You try to talk about it. You ask questions. You try to plan things together. But instead of building bridges, he gives you walls. Let's not think too far ahead. I don't know what the future holds. Why do we need to plan everything? These aren't just casual deflections, they're signs. Signs that he's mentally and emotionally stepping away. And here's the hardest truth, someone who sees a future with you doesn't hesitate to talk about it. They may not have all the answers, but they'll have the intention. They'll include you. Not because they're certain about everything, but because they're certain about you. When that certainty is gone, you feel it in the emptiness of plans that never happen. In the way you start planning your life around someone who isn't planning his around you. And that disconnection is one of the most devastating forms of emotional neglect. Because it tells you, you're not the one he's dreaming with anymore. You deserve a love that looks forward. A love that includes you in the next chapter. A love that says, I want you by my side not just today, but tomorrow, and the day after that. You deserve to feel like a priority, not just in the present, but in the path ahead. If a man is no longer putting you in his future, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because he's no longer aligned with the same vision you once shared. And no amount of love, patience, or persuasion can force someone to build a future they no longer want. But you can build your own. A future filled with peace. With partnership. With someone who doesn't hesitate to say, you're exactly who I want to grow with. You deserve to be someone's forever, not their fallback. So if he no longer sees you in his plans, then maybe it's time you start creating your own. Not out of bitterness, but out of bravery. Out of the deep knowing that your life, your dreams, and your future are far too valuable to be left out of someone else's story. Especially when you're the kind of woman who deserves to be the leading role, not just a passing part. Conclusion. When a man stops valuing you, he rarely says it with words, he shows it through silence, distance, neglect, and subtle shifts that break your heart piece by piece. The little things disappear. Conversations turn cold. Blame becomes a habit. He stops choosing you. He stops planning a future with you. And through it all, you're left questioning your worth in a relationship where you once felt so sure. But the truth is, it's not your fault. You didn't lose value. He simply stopped seeing it, and that says more about him than it ever will about you. You deserve to be loved out loud, not quietly faded out of someone's life. You deserve someone who shows up, who chooses you daily, who includes you in their vision of forever, not just out of comfort, but out of commitment. If you've recognized these signs, let it be your wake-up call, not to chase, not to beg, but to reclaim your power. Love should never feel like you're constantly trying to prove your worth. It should feel like a place where your soul can breathe and your heart can rest. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away, from neglect, from uncertainty, from almost love, and walk toward a life where you are valued, chosen, and truly seen. Because the right man won't make you feel like an option. He'll make you feel like home. So that concludes today's video. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end. I hope you found some valuable lessons and that these shares will help you on your love journey. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting content in the future. I appreciate your support and I'll see you in the next videos. Wishing you love and happiness.